In the strange neon glow of the 1980s, television brought forth animated worlds so bizarre that many vanished almost instantly from memory. These forgotten cartoons blended surreal humor, eerie themes, and experimental animation that felt far ahead of their time. Today we journey deep into that strange vault, uncovering 15 unusual shows you have definitely never heard of. Let the weirdness begin. Number 15. Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors, 1985. Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors stands as one of the most bewildering animated creations of the 1980s. A mystical sci-fi saga wrapped inside an environmental allegory, the show followed Jayce, a young hero, searching for his missing father while battling monstrous plant machines known as the Monster Mines. These creatures sprouted from toxic vines and mutated into sentient vehicles, creating a world where nature itself rebelled through mechanical horror. What made the series especially strange was its tonal complexity. It mixed cosmic prophecy, fantasy lore, environmental messaging, and high-speed vehicle combat, but with no clear emotional center. Episodes bounced between dark, apocalyptic tension and lighthearted comedic moments, leaving viewers unsure whether it was meant for children, adults, or both. Even stranger, the show was tied loosely to a toy line, but the toys looked nothing like the characters or vehicles on screen, creating a deeply confusing marketing disconnect. Still, the surreal world-building and ambitious mythology helped the cartoon gain a faint cult following. With cryptic prophecies, glowing vines, and a universe controlled by plant machines, Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors remains one of the most bizarre animated experiments of the decade. Number 14. Galaxy High School, 1986. Galaxy High School was an intergalactic fever dream disguised as a Saturday morning cartoon. It followed two Earth teens who transfer to a cosmic high school where every classmate is a bizarre alien creature with anatomy that defies biological logic. Stretchy bodies, floating heads, and gelatinous classmates filled the halls, creating an environment that felt more like a galactic circus than an educational institution. What made the show truly strange was its humor. Every episode leaned into rapid-fire absurdity, with lessons delivered through shape-shifting teachers and alien biology that functioned as punchline storytelling. Even the lockers were alive, reacting to students with moods of their own. The background swirled with psychedelic colors and impossible architecture designed to disorient and entertain simultaneously. Yet beneath this surreal wrapper, the series unexpectedly tackled social issues like belonging insecurity and cultural differences, using alien exaggerations as metaphors for high school struggle. Viewers who discovered it later in life embraced it for its innovative animation and unpredictable comedic style. Galaxy High School remains a delightfully bizarre artifact from the decade when cartoons pushed boundaries without hesitation. Number 13. Turbo Teen, 1984. Turbo Teen is the kind of cartoon people assume must be a joke until they discover it was completely real. The premise revolved around a teenage boy who transforms into a red sports car whenever he gets hot, and then turns back into a human when he cools down. This transformation was portrayed with unsettling body horror as limbs stretched metal formed and skin reshaped into chrome surfaces. The show attempted to fuse superhero action with vehicular adventure, but its central transformation gimmick dominated every storyline. Chase scenes turned into bizarre emotional moments as the hero struggled to cool down or heat up, depending on the situation. Villains were equally odd, ranging from cyber thieves to evil mechanics to criminal racers who seemed unbothered by the human-turned automobile situation. The tone shifted wildly from action drama to outright absurdity, creating a cult fascination long after the show disappeared. Turbo Teen is remembered today as one of the strangest premises ever animated, proof that the 1980s embraced every wild idea, no matter how surreal. Number 12. Kissifer, 1986. Kissifer appeared at first glance to be a harmless bear cartoon, but beneath its soft exterior lived one of the strangest emotional landscapes of the decade. The story followed a young bear named Kissifer and his father Gus as they escape a circus train crash and attempt to rebuild their lives inside a Louisiana-style swamp community. The tonal shift from tragedy to gentle comedy gave the show an emotional tension unusual for children programming. The Swamp Society itself was a surreal mix of animal tribes, each with their own quirks and traditions. Episodes balanced tender father-son themes with surprisingly dark storylines involving danger loss and moral dilemmas. The villains, a pair of bumbling alligators, added chaotic humor, yet the threat they posed often felt unnervingly real. Because of its dramatic depth and odd mixture of sweetness and fear, Kissifer developed a strange, dreamlike tone that lingered long after episodes ended. It remains an obscure but emotionally complex relic from a time when cartoons dared to explore shadows beneath the bright colors. Number 11. Potato Head Kids, 1986. Potato Head Kids took the concept of sentient potato children and stretched it into one of the most peculiar animated universes ever aired. This short-lived series expanded the Mr. Potato Head brand into a surreal community of potato youngsters, each with exaggerated personalities and oddly human-like features sitting atop potato-shaped bodies. The result was both whimsical and unintentionally unsettling. Episodes revolved around moral lessons, teamwork, and problem-solving, but the bizarre character designs overshadowed everything. Limbs sprouted from random places, hats floated or attached strangely, and faces seemed to shift depending on the scene. The world they inhabited was equally strange, with oddly proportioned buildings and environments that seemed to bend around the character designs rather than follow logical structure. Though created to appeal to younger viewers, the uncanny visuals and strange tonal mix made it memorable for entirely different reasons. Potato Head Kids remains a curiosity in animation history, a show so odd that its very existence feels like a fever dream from the plastic-saturated 1980s. Number 10. My Pet Monster, 1987. My Pet Monster looked like a lighthearted toy tie-in, but beneath its cheerful colors sat one of the strangest premises of the decade. The story followed Max, a regular boy, who discovers that his plush monster becomes alive when the magic shackles on its wrists break. The transformation itself set the tone for the series, turning a harmless stuffed toy into a hulking, bright blue creature with glowing eyes, sharp teeth, and a personality that flickered between innocent playfulness and chaotic mischief. The strangeness rose from the show attempt to balance heartwarming friendship with unpredictable monster energy. Monster was loyal but uncontrollable, and each adventure became a struggle to keep him hidden from adults, villains, and curious bystanders. Every episode asked the same surreal question: how does a normal child handle a living creature who can break walls, lift cars, and cause havoc simply by trying to help? The antagonist, Mr. Hinkle, a stern neighbor, constantly suspected something odd happening around Mac's house, adding to the tension as monster antics escalated. The animation style leaned into exaggerated reactions, rubbery character movements, and vibrant color bursts, creating an offbeat visual identity. My Pet Monster exists today as a half-remembered oddity, cherished by those who stumbled upon it in childhood. It blended fantasy comedy and mild chaos into one unforgettable mixture, proving that the 1980s never hesitated to push animated storytelling into unpredictable territory. Number 9. The Popples, 1986. The Popples introduced viewers to a world filled with bright colors and creatures who could fold their bodies into fuzzy balls only to spring outward, unleashing unpredictable chaos. These characters were designed to be cute, yet their physics defied logic. They bounced through scenes like living rubber balls transforming at will and leaving behind trails of energy bursts that gave the show a dreamlike rhythm. Episodes centered around human kids who tried to keep the Popples' existence secret, while the creatures constantly created complications. The Popples meant well, but their ability to fold, twist, expand, and pop into action always escalated into comedic disasters. Rooms exploded with confetti, objects flew through the air, and impossible transformations unfolded with no explanation of how their bodies worked. The show's strangeness came from its blend of slapstick and surreal movement. The Popples communicated with squeaks, giggles, and exaggerated facial expressions, turning their emotional states into animated fireworks. Even the backgrounds felt elastic, warping around their energetic antics. Despite its wild tone, the series carried undertones of friendship, responsibility, and accepting those who are different. The Popples' popularity with toy collectors helped it survive beyond its initial broadcast, yet for many, it remains a barely remembered burst of animated surrealism from a decade that embraced bright colors and boundless imagination. The Popples stands today as one of the most visually chaotic and endearingly strange cartoons ever produced during the neon-soaked 1980s. Number 8. Fufur, 1986. Fufur was not simply a cartoon about dogs. It was an unusually introspective tale, wrapped in a quirky animal adventure. The show followed Fufur, a tall blue hound who lived with a group of misfit dogs inside a deserted mansion. Their existence was secretive, precarious, and filled with small victories and losses that gave the series a surprisingly emotional core. The strange element came from its tone. Instead of relying solely on slapstick humor, Fufur incorporated themes of displacement, survival, and community. The mansion served as both sanctuary and prison, depending on the situation. The dogs formed a found family navigating threats from landlords, dog catchers, and rival animals. Their personalities clashed and harmonized in ways that felt unusually grounded for a children-animated show of the era. The animation style was equally distinctive. Characters were lanky, expressive, and often moved with exaggerated elasticity, suggesting both comedy and melancholy. The color palette leaned toward muted blues, purples, and grays, which contrasted sharply with the brighter visuals typical of 1980s cartoons. Fufur explored empathy, loyalty, and identity through the eyes of animals who had to carve a life in a world not built for them. Though gentle and humorous, the series carried a shadow of realism that made certain episodes unforgettable. Fufur remains a quiet oddity, remembered by few, but cherished by those who appreciated its mixture of heartfelt messages and unusual artistic choices. Number 7. Widget, 1989. Widget introduced viewers to an alien who could shapeshift into virtually anything, creating a series built on transformations that often bordered on the surreal. The small purple extraterrestrial arrived on Earth as an environmental guardian, learning about human behavior while trying to stop polluters and villains from damaging the planet. His shape-shifting powers were limitless, allowing him to turn into tools, machines, animals, or abstract forms depending on the episode needs. This flexibility became the show's greatest source of strangeness. Widget transformations happened instantly and often unpredictably, giving each episode a manic pace. His sidekicks Half-Pint and Megabrain added to the oddness, bringing comedic energy and eccentric intelligence. The villains who sought to exploit Earth resources were portrayed with exaggerated greed, making the show moral lessons clear but wrapped in colorful extraterrestrial antics. The animation featured bold lines, vibrant colors, and energetic motion that matched Widget's constant metamorphosis. Backgrounds stretched, shifted, and sparkled, suggesting a world where physical rules bent around environmental themes. Even serious topics, pollution, extinction, deforestation, were filtered through Widget's childlike enthusiasm and shape-shifting comedy. Widget remains a unique relic of late-decade television, a strange combination of education, imagination, and alien energy. Though lesser known, Number 6. Spartacus and the Sun Beneath the Sea, 1985. Among the decade's most visually surreal animated series, Spartacus and the Sun Beneath the Sea stood out as a masterpiece of dreamlike storytelling. Created in France, the show followed two surface children, Matt and Rebecca, who accidentally fall into Arcadia, a hidden underground world powered by a failing artificial sun. Guided by Spartacus, a mysterious warrior, and Arcadian children known as Lemurians, they embark on a quest to save the dying light. The series embraced bold, abstract landscapes, shifting architecture, and glowing color palettes that made every scene resemble a moving painting. The mythology was dense, filled with philosophical undertones, questions about identity and fate, and a narrative structure that felt closer to literary fantasy than typical children entertainment. Strange creatures roamed the underground seas, bizarre machines transformed reality, and the artificial sun pulsed like a living heart. Story arcs explored environmental decay, existential fear, and hope through poetic dialogue and haunting imagery. The musical score added another layer of oddness, mixing synthesizers, melancholy harmonies, and otherworldly vocals. Many viewers who encountered the show as children recall it with reverence and confusion, unsure whether they witnessed fantasy adventure or a vivid dream. Spartacus and the Sun Beneath the Sea remains one of the most artistically ambitious and hauntingly strange cartoons of the 1980s, a rare gem that continues to fascinate animation historians. Number 5. The Adventures of Teddy Ruxpin, 1986. The Adventures of Teddy Ruxpin was born from one of the 1980s most unusual toys, a talking animatronic bear whose plastic mouth moved while reading cassette tapes. Turning that strange novelty into a full animated fantasy series created an unexpected world filled with magic, ancient technology, and dreamlike creatures. Teddy Ruxpin, the friendly Iliop, and his companions, Grubby and Newton Gimmick, traveled the land of Grundo, seeking mystical crystals that held immense power. What made the show so strange was its mixture of innocence and eerie atmosphere. The landscapes felt vast, empty, and occasionally unsettling, with floating airships, glowing caves, and abandoned machinery, suggesting a world long past its prime. The creatures Teddy encountered often looked both cute and alien, with designs mixing plush toy softness and surreal detail. Episodes unfolded at a gentle pace, yet the underlying narrative carried surprising emotional weight. Themes of loss, friendship, and discovery appeared frequently as the characters uncovered fragmented histories of ancient civilizations. The villains, including the Gutangs, resembled masked bird warriors and added a sinister undertone that contrasted with Teddy's cheerful optimism. The show production used a rare serialized format, meaning each episode continued directly from the previous one, which was unusual for children animation at the time. This created a slow, building epic feel, making the world seem larger and more mysterious, though remembered fondly by a small audience. The Adventures of Teddy Ruxpin remains a curious blend of toy marketing, ancient lore, and gentle adventure. Its soft-spoken hero traveled through one of the strangest dreamscapes television ever offered young viewers. Number 4. The Raccoons and the Lost Star, 1983. Before the Raccoons became a regular television series, it debuted with a truly bizarre space-themed special titled The Raccoons and the Lost Star. This one-shot adventure placed the familiar forest characters into a cosmic journey far removed from their usual grounded setting. Bert, Ralph, and Melissa suddenly found themselves navigating alien landscapes, hunting for a stolen star while confronting a robotic villain known as Cyril Sneer alternate form. The tonal shift from forest comedy to interstellar fantasy created an experience that felt disjointed yet compelling. The landscapes were dark, colorful, and strange, featuring glowing planets, crystalline structures, and swirling nebulae painted in vibrant detail. The characters moved through these otherworldly environments with a dreamlike lack of explanation, raising questions about how forest animals ended up piloting spacecraft. Adding to the oddness, the story used themes of cosmic balance, environmental protection, and the fragility of starlight, combining high fantasy with moral teaching. The villain motivations involved greed and cosmic control, making the conflict feel both intimate and galactic. Music played a significant role, with haunting synth melodies underscoring scenes of exploration or danger. The visual animation was more experimental than the later series, using exaggerated shadows and thick lines that enhanced the surreal atmosphere. Number 3. Oxtales, 1987. Oxtales was a slice of animated absurdity adapted from a Japanese manga and transformed into a fast-paced comedic series featuring animals behaving with exaggerated human logic. The central character, Ollie the Ox, lived on a farm where every animal had unique quirks, ranging from explosive tempers to philosophical musings. Daily life quickly devolved into chaos as mishaps escalated into towering comedic disasters. What made Oxtales particularly strange was its use of slapstick physics. Characters stretched, flattened, exploded, and reassembled themselves without consequence. The animation embraced elastic movement and unpredictable motion, allowing scenes to transform into visual gags at any moment. The storytelling ignored realistic behavior entirely, turning even simple chores into surreal escapades. The world felt lawless, yet cheerful. A pig might fly wearing makeshift wings, a giraffe could tie its neck into knots, and a duck might use its beak as a shovel. This freeform exaggeration created a sense of playful anarchy that separated the show from more traditional farm-themed cartoons. Despite its outrageous humor, Oxtales often carried subtle messages about cooperation, responsibility, and self-acceptance, though filtered through absurdity. The vibrant animation style, bright color choices, and unpredictable pacing gave the series a distinctive identity. Oxtales remains a seldom remembered gem, one that embraced chaos as its defining principle. For audiences who encountered it unexpectedly, the series left an impression of unrestrained imagination and comedic madness unique to the 1980s. Number 2. The Bluffers, 1986. The Bluffers was an eco-fantasy cautionary tale wrapped in surreal humor and bright animation. The story followed a group of forest creatures living under the oppressive rule of Clandestino, an authoritarian villain obsessed with polluting and controlling every part of their woodland home. His world-destroying machines and toxic inventions created a dramatic backdrop for the Bluffers' rebellion. The show's strangeness came from its combination of silliness and dark allegory. While characters cracked jokes and improvised wacky solutions, their world was clearly on the brink of collapse. Entire forests wilted under Clandestino. Influence rivers turned murky, and strange mechanical monsters roamed the landscape. Yet the tone remained playful, making the environmental devastation feel both humorous and unsettling. Each character embodied exaggerated traits. There was a nervous bird who feared everything, a brilliant inventor whose creations frequently malfunctioned, and a boastful hero who rarely delivered on his promises. Their interactions were chaotic, funny, and often unintentionally profound. The animation supported this blend of tones with angular designs, vivid colors, and expressive, wide-eyed characters. Musical numbers appeared randomly, delivering moral lessons in upbeat rhythms, while machinery clanked in the background, like a reminder of destruction. The Bluffers remains a cult-level curiosity praised for delivering an ecological message long before environmentalism became common in children programming. Its odd mix of satire, fantasy, and looming dread makes it one of the decade's most unusual animated productions. Number 1. The Noozles, 1984. The Noozles was easily one of the most surreal children's series of the 1980s, blending Australian folklore, Japanese animation, and dreamlike fantasy into an experience that defied explanation. The story began when a young girl named Sandy discovered a mysterious koala doll that came to life whenever she rubbed noses with it. This magical act awakened Blinky, an energetic Noozle whose abilities challenged every rule of reality. From the moment Blinky appeared, the world around Sandy transformed into a playground of bizarre physics. Noozles could freeze time travel between dimensions and manipulate objects with unusual energy. Everyday environments morphed into glowing landscapes, swirling with pastel colors and impossible shapes. Sandy bedrooms shifted into portals, forests opened into floating realms, and the boundary between imagination and reality eroded scene by scene. The show's strangeness deepened with the introduction of Pinky, another Noozle, whose emotional outbursts triggered even stranger effects. Whole areas would suspend in mid-air or reshape themselves, responding to the Noozle's mood instead of natural laws. Episodes balanced light comedy with sudden cosmic stakes, as creatures from the koala dimension crossed into Earth, bringing messages, warnings, or riddles that suggested a much deeper mythology. Adults in the series remained oblivious to the magical chaos unfolding around them, which heightened the dreamlike quality. Viewers experienced the world entirely through the perspective of Sandy, and the Noozles making the narrative feel like an extended, lucid dream. Soft music, glowing backgrounds, and whimsical character movements added to the hypnotic tone. The Noozles remains one of the weirdest and most enchanting forgotten animations of the decade. Its combination of cozy childhood charm and dimension-bending magic made it unlike anything else on television. Few cartoons captured the feeling of drifting between dreams and daylight as perfectly as the Noozles. The 1980s animation vault hides wonders stranger than memory can hold. These forgotten shows reveal a decade unafraid to experiment, to dream, and to defy logic on glowing screens. Revisit them, seek them out, and rediscover a world where imagination ruled without limits. The strangest stories still wait in the shadows.